What's going on, everybody? This is Moose and Brian here from OccupyFantasy.com, at OccupyFantasy on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Where Moose on Twitter is where you can find me. I'm the co-founder and data guru here at Occupy Fantasy, alongside Brian at Brian Jester FF on Twitter, co-founder and CEO of OccupyFantasy.com. How's it going, Brian?
What's up, Moose? How's it going? I had a little bit of connection issues, but you hear me okay?
Yep. Literally, the moment we hit live, I got a notification from OBS. It was like, "Hey, chill out. Your stream's too good." And so I think there's some connection issues there. Yeah, I'm just trying to find a last play on Underdog. UnderdogFantasy.com. They have some boost play. I have 4 selected, and I don't know what to do for my last one. If anyone here in the chat wants to sweat it with me and wants to give a tip, I would greatly appreciate it.
What's the boost for tomorrow?
So apparently, if you have to include Jonathan Taylor over under 118.5 rushing yards. So I did over on that because why not? And then I have under Dak passing yards, over Gardner Minshew pass yards, over Kenneth Gainwell rushing and receiving yards.
And that's not enough. You have to do more than 4.
I have to do 5 to get the boost.
Damn, fucking scam artist. All right, so well, maybe we'll uncover one as we talk about tomorrow's games here on the show.
Sounds like a plan to me. Yeah, so I think we could just. We are normally here for. This is for the Sunday show, or the Sunday show for tomorrow's games. If you have questions about today's games, we do have the video that's already put out. But if you have more questions, certainly more than happy to answer any questions that you have there. Because today's slate, Brian, it's very equivalent to like a preseason slate in some senses.
Dude, it feels like it. It really does. I mean, we're getting all the preseason plays in anyways. And, yeah, I don't know. Again, if you guys have questions, go check out the video Jack and I put up earlier this morning, about 10, 15 minutes long. Covers all the angles. Nothing really has changed since then. We might get some changes here before 4:30. But if you guys have questions, we'll answer them quickly about tonight's games. But again, encourage you to check out the video while this video is mostly for tomorrow's games, which are just as bad, Moose.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So let's just jump right into it. We have the daily plug here up on screen. We scroll down here. We look at some of the motivation. And motivation is a big thing in Week 18. With teams don't have playoff potential. They want to rest their starters. They do have playoff potential, and it's locked up, so they don't play their starters. As Chris pointed out here in the article, Jim Sands of Numberfire has a very good Twitter thread this week about FanDuel perfect lineups on these slates since 2017. Slightly more than half of the optimal players came from teams with something to play for. I know, like, saying that it makes perfect sense. Like, why would you want to play someone who's just like is just out there running routes for no reason?
Right, exactly. And the way to think about it this week, and we'll quickly highlight the teams that are playing here in a second. But the thing that you think about, Moose, is quarterbacks generally come from teams in contention. We saw a Millie winner last year in the Minnesota game in the final week of the regular season. That didn't mean anything, and the game was just completely shot out. So maybe that happens, right? That's possible. Running backs are kind of hit or miss, right? Because sometimes we see teams run the ball heavier in Week 18 or Week 17 it was last year, and sometimes we see guys who don't get a ton of touches generally end up in the optimal lineups. Like last year, it's in Week 17, Antonio Williams, who doesn't even have a touch this year, was a top 10 running back. Darwin Thompson was a top 5 running back, right? So we'll see those types of guys tomorrow. Receivers, however, are generally on teams in contention. They're generally good players. We don't normally see too many scrubs or randos in the optimal lineup, even on Week 17 at the receiver position, because generally, if they're a bad player and they're getting more playing time, they're probably playing with a bad quarterback, a bad team in general, and they're not getting as many opportunities. The only guys who we don't normally play at wide receiver that end up in optimals are guys who are playing more due to injuries to other players on their team, not necessarily just being on a bad team. And then tight end in general, tight end's an absolute shit show. Like, we'll see some super random dudes end up in the optimal or be a top 10 scorer tomorrow at tight end. So that's a position that I think you can get a little bit crazier and consider some of the guys on these teams that aren't in contention.
So that's when you just galaxy brain it, and you just have your core of like 6 players and just wrap around like the 30 tight ends that's playing tomorrow.
Just Laz gets fitted, but with the tight ends only.
Definitely. Yeah, and you talked about that Minnesota Vikings Lions game. that absolutely crushed last year. I think it's important to to follow the beat reporters, follow the beat writers. People over at the Athletic are really good at that as well, and just kind of get a sense and feel for what teams are doing. And I think that's probably more than what most people will do, and that right there will give you an edge.
Yeah. So just really quickly, sorry, Most good.
No, I was gonna say it may be just a slight edge, but it still is an edge nevertheless.
Exactly. So I went through this morning and just looked at teams that are playing. I actually read articles from the Athletic and beat reporters to see which teams are still playing it like they want to win. And if you look at it, so the teams most that are definitely in contention. I'm just going here by, again, there's tons of articles out there, but just to quickly recap it here in video form. So I'm going in order of start time tomorrow. So Steelers and Ravens, both teams are playing to win. They need help to get in. Very slim chance, but they're playing to win, both teams. Bengals and Browns. Browns are eliminated. Case Keenum's going to start. Bengals are basically resting their guys. Joe Burrow didn't even make the trip. Joe Mixon's on COVID. They're talking. C.J. Uzomah is probably not going to play. Expect tons of backups for the Bengals. Packers and Lions. Lions are playing to win, as Dan Campbell said. Green Bay, all the players have already said they're not playing 4 quarters, so we can't really consider anyone from them. Houston and Tennessee. Houston saying they're playing it as normal. Tennessee needs to win to get the 1 seed. Indy and Jacksonville. Indy needs to win to get in. Jacksonville, they're going to keep playing Trevor Lawrence and all the rest of their guys. Chicago and Minnesota, both teams are on the loser list. They can't do anything with this game. Mike Zimmer is adamant about not even remotely seeing a younger player get into the game. He said that's what preseason games are for. They're going to play this game to win. So that could be a game to target for teams out of contention. Washington and the Giants, both teams are trying to win, but I don't know if they can even win by trying, right? Jake Fromm starting for the Giants. Washington's going to play their normal guys. Seattle and Arizona. Arizona is playing for a divisional title. Seattle is going to play to win, according to Pete Carroll. Atlanta and New Orleans. New Orleans can win with some help to get in. Atlanta, we haven't heard anything. They'll probably play Matt Ryan most of the game, if not all of it. Jets and Bills. Bills got a chance at a divisional title. They're going to play. Jets are the Jets, but they're going to play their normal guys. Rams, 49ers, most important game of the slate. Both teams are going to play their guys. Patriots, Dolphins. Patriots can clinch the AFC East. They're going to play. Dolphins, haven't heard anything. Probably playing to win. Haven't heard anything, though. And then Panthers and Bucks. Bucks playing to win, obviously. Can move up in seeding. Not sure if they'll play the whole game, but probably will. And then Carolina, haven't heard anything, but they've been rotating quarterbacks and loser shit anyway. So,
all right, so we just don't need the rest of the video. We can just head out now after all that.
sorry for going on so long, but I just wanted to get all that out there.
No, that's perfect. I will definitely. Someone should probably clip that. If you can clip it on YouTube and put that on Twitter or something, you'll get a lot of engagement for it. Goat in the chat says, keeping my cash for playoffs. Too much gamble for me to take, other than the Chargers Raiders single game tomorrow. That's good for you, Goat, to realize, hey, I need to take a step back. I don't want to do this right now, and picking your spots. I applaud that.
Yeah, and it would be funny if the Colts lose tomorrow, because then I don't know if we'll see this, right? But if the Colts lose, both the Chargers and Raiders can get into the playoffs with a tie. Do both teams play it super conservative? Do they go with the approach of kneeling every single snap to avoid getting injured, and they both get in?
How do you if you're the quarterback or the coach or something, you just be like, look, it's Sunday Night Football. Let's just cause the most chaos and just kneel every play.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine. I could see Staley doing it. I don't think the Raiders coach would do it, because he's been working forever to get to be a coach, and then the final game of the season he kneels every play. I don't think it's going to happen. Although if you can come to some sort of agreement before the game, you and I both get in the playoffs and we don't get anyone injured.
Yeah,
it's hard to argue against it.
I'm just saying, if I'm both coaches, I would just make the agreement to do it the very first play, just so everyone loses their shit. So the very first play of the game, kneel. Oh my god! I bet everyone would just go absolutely nuts. Twitter would just blow up. Twitter would
actually shut down for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Dotbets has a good question here. How are you treating players with incentives this week?
Yeah, obviously we've seen it before. George Kittle had incentives 2 years ago, and he scored 50 fantasy points in the final week. They literally tried to get him the ball. They were down 30 in the final quarter, and they were throwing him the ball. Yeah, I think if guys are close with a realistic chance of attaining an incentive, sure, they'll go for it. And I think those guys are good to put in your lineups. ETR established a run, who obviously is a competitor, but they put out a free article this week with guys with incentives. So go check that out. And yeah, I wouldn't like necessarily target those guys, but if you're looking to break ties, for sure.
Yeah, I think Cooper Cup is on incentives, right? But like,
Yeah,
granted, it's like super crazy, right?
I don't think it's that crazy. 100 and something yards to break the single season record. So I mean, he'll probably break it anyways without trying, just because of how good he is in that offense.
Exactly. Yeah. So we talked about a bunch of different teams. Let's talk about some of the games to stack. As Chris pointed out here this week, we have a blend of the game stack and favorite offenses to stack approach in mind. So the first one that pops on the list here is Seattle and Arizona. And Brian, I'll just let you talk about this game.
Yeah, so Arizona has to play, has a chance to win the division. They've been sputtering here as of late, but they got a chance to win the division. And they have very clear guys to stack with Kyler. Both Christian Kirk, Zach Ertz seen a huge bump in targets since DeAndre Hopkins has been out of the lineup. And the interesting thing we have to monitor here is Chase Edmonds has already been ruled out. James Conner has gotten in like 4 straight limited practices dating back to last week. I think he'll be good to go, especially in a must-win game. And Seattle's missing their best defensive player, Bobby Wagner. He's out. So that bodes well for Conner, bodes well for Zach Ertz. So you got to like that game stack a little more. Plus, Seattle actually playing with no cares in the world means they're not running, 100 times per game, which is actually good from a DFS perspective. And Arizona's missing their top 2 corners once again. So if we're looking for reasons to bring back Metcalf and Lockett, so a really good game all around the stack.
Absolutely, yeah. Dotbet says Cup, Diggs, and Gronk stand out for incentives, but I figure they're going to be heavily owned. Brian, if you're playing, heavily owned guys like that, you can still offset it by 2x1 stacking, 3x1 stacking, playing some low owned guys around them. I don't think that's necessarily something that you should avoid because they're high owned.
Right, for sure. And like those guys are just good plays in general, regardless of the incentive angle. So you're looking for the fringe guys or guys who aren't playing for anything to have incentives that are the ones that would get a bump.
Yeah, like if I'm playing Freddie Swain for incentives and he's super popular, we're like, you know what, I should probably back off him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. The next stack here, the 49ers at the Rams. We've kind of indirectly talked about this a little bit, but high stakes for both squads, and Niners need this. They can't qualify for the postseason without a win, and the Rams need to win to lock up the division title. So, again, the 49ers are great. Debo's apparently wide receiver, running back 1. Just crushes every week. You talk about Kittle as well. Overall, really good stack that I like. Is there anything you want to add on that, Brian?
I just think we have to see if we get some news about who's starting at quarterback for San Francisco. If Jimmy G starts, it raises the floor ceiling of all the pass catchers, just because of Trey Lance likely running more. So I'm leaning towards Jimmy G. A lot of the beats and just reading between the lines think that Jimmy G is going to start. But that's the key thing to think about for this game.
Makes sense. And in Ed, it only took us 18 weeks to get here. But the Indianapolis Colts, Ed, if you're listening, I know I see you in the chat, but if you're listening here, the Colts getting to play a win-and-in clinch scenario against the worst team in the NFL. 15-point massive favorites. So, Brian, we wouldn't really be looking to bring someone back. Just stack the Colts and hope they blow them out. Yeah,
we've talked about this many times throughout the year, the season. If you have a team as a double-digit favorite, generally 3x0 stacks are more optimal in large field contests, even in small field contests, any high-risk environment. So, yeah, we're looking, if you decide and hope that the touchdown variance goes in favor of the passing game instead of the running game, Carson Wentz, Michael Pittman, and then pick one of these high-risk pairings with Wentz. If you want to bring it back, you can. I don't think I will. But, the outside receivers, Marvin Jones, Laquan Treadwell, probably your best bets.
Makes sense to me. Cool. Swaggy P says, what do you guys think about Judy today?
I mean, I love Judy as a player, but it's just this bullshit low-volume passing offense. This makes it tough for any of these guys. And when all the guys are on the field together, Judy, Patrick, Cortland Sutton, it's just not enough balls to go around, especially when they're only throwing 20 times per game or whatever the hell it is. So, yeah, I mean, he's a slot receiver, should get 5, 6, maybe more targets. I personally like some of the other receivers better, but again, it's only 2 games. So there's a long way of saying he has a chance of being the optimal, but you could say the same about any of the Denver receivers.
Okay. Cool. So some other ones. This is one I like more than the Colts. Just throw some shots at Ed, but the Pittsburgh at Baltimore. The model absolutely loves this game stack. It's one of the highest ranked spots on the board, and both teams have motivation to win. Basically, they need to win to potentially get into the playoffs. And there's a bunch of high floor, high ceiling weapons on both sides. Brian, do you like this game as well as the game stack?
I do. The only thing we have to monitor is the freaking weather, because there's potential weather all over tomorrow. And we didn't even talk about it from a high level move. So there's only one game with a point total over 45, which is super gross. Super gross. The highest total is over 45 on the main slate. Basically, every other total is under 45. And if you look at this Ravens Steelers game, there's a chance for freezing rain and kind of cold. No wind really, but if it's downpouring the whole game, maybe that's an issue. If we assume the weather's okay, I agree with you. I like this game. We could stack Huntley easily with Andrews and/or Hollywood, and Steelers got some options to run it back. So I agree with you. I agree with the model here. We just got to monitor the weather.
Yeah, we just need a weather model.
Yeah, like baseball.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the stacks. As Ed points out, Seattle this week.
Yeah, we just talked about him, right? So yeah, well, I think
Ed, I
would
shouted
not.
you out like 6 times, and you asked me a
Yeah,
question that doesn't even pertain to that. I thought you were cool, Ed. Yep, Seattle and Arizona, the top ranked game stack in the Daily Plug.
There you go.
Yep. Cool. So we have 12 minutes left here until the end of our show. So if you have questions about today, tomorrow, anything like that, go ahead and ask. We're here for 12 more minutes. Brian, what do you want to talk about next?
Oh boy. So the slate tomorrow is so hard. I haven't looked at it too much. I've been focused on my lineups today, but historically, like Goat said at the top in the chat, week 18s or week 17s in the past haven't been great for me personally. So just trying to focus a little more on where I've gone wrong, what I need to do, and I don't know, Musa, what are you thinking about these game stacks? I mean, because I think these top two especially stand out to me. But when all these other games have lower totals, it's going to be really hard on 13-game slate for a 3x1 stack to get there. However, we just got to hope that one of these teams end up passing more than expected, because each week, as we've talked about, less and less teams are passing more than their expected rates. And a lot of teams, especially those not in contention, are just happy to run the ball more than ever and get out of there and close the season out. So it's really tough. It's really, really tough.
Like, I can easily see, like, if you're 150 max and 20, you could have a player pool of like 30 people, like 25 people, just because there's not that many good options of people who are actually playing the full game in good weather situations. So it's tough.
Right.
I think what the move might be, if you are a 150 maxer, would be take a step back, maybe do a 3-entry max, single entry, something smaller like that. I guarantee we're going to see some weird shit at the top of the Millie Makers.
So if we look at last year's Millie Maker, it was a 15-game slate. They played they changed the format this year to include the Saturday games and the Sunday night game. Last year was all 15 games. If you look at the winning lineup, it's all guys we know. Like, it's not that crazy of a lineup. It was a Kirk Cousins 2x1, Kirk Cousins and Alexander Madison, Jonathan Taylor, Brandon Cooks, Marvin Jones, Jerry Jeudy, Mike Gesicki, AJ Brown, Jets. Like, all those are real players that we would play. Right, nothing too crazy. If you look at some of the other top 10 lineups, we get Isaiah McKenzie, Donald Parham. Let me see. I'm just clicking through some names here.
Yeah.
Laviska. I mentioned Darwin Thompson, but he was so low owned that no one really played him. So maybe you play like 1, maybe 2 random players per lineup that you normally wouldn't play. But all in all, we're gonna be playing some guys, and the winning lineups are gonna feature guys that we normally play year round.
That's interesting to think about. Yeah, I think that could be like a min 1, less than 2% guy or something like that, where you get some random scrub in or something. I don't know. It's something to think about.
Yeah, like min 1, max 2, maybe even max 1. Right? You don't have to get too crazy. The key thing is we just got to find the game that shoots out, because that Minnesota Detroit game that won the Millie Maker last year scored like 70 points. So.
Yeah, and what were some of the ownerships on the lower owned guys on that? Because as we talked about before, we've seen it where if there's a person who's less than 1% or something, you don't need the optimal. You don't need to even come close. Like, you can have some people who are, who don't score the most, but because you have a 0.5% guy who scores 26 points, that can shoot you
Right.
up there.
So the number 2 finisher last year had Isaiah McKenzie. Cole Beasley was out, and Isaiah McKenzie, who was apparently the best point per touch player in the history of the NFL, was min price 3K. He was 0.58% owned, and he put up 30 DraftKings points.
Wow.
So that obviously, creates some margin for error. Donald Parham was 4.4%. He was 2,900. If you look at who's the other guy I just mentioned here, Darwin Thompson. Darwin Thompson was 1.98%, and he put up a 30 spot at 4,400 at running back. So, again, trying to find those guys can be helpful, and we'll just have to, pick through and I really think being active tomorrow after inactives are announced, we might see, oh man, all these guys rested guys. That's what we saw with Antonio Williams last year in Buffalo. We're like, oh shit, they rested everybody. It's just Antonio Williams.
Yeah.
And so I think just be agile tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. Treat it like an NBA lock. Tell your girlfriend to go to the Target or something like that. Spend a couple hours while you're waiting for inactives to come in.
Yep. Exactly.
Let's see here. All right, so we got a bunch of questions here in chat. Dot says, what's your thoughts on a Buck stack?
Yeah, I like it. So obviously, what we like here is concentrated volume. Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, cheap option, Cyril Grayson. I wouldn't run him back. Maybe run him back with DJ Moore, but I think they play enough that you can get there. They may play the whole game. In fact, they probably play the whole game.
Nice. What do you guys think about Russ, Lockett, and running it back with Connor and Kirk?
I'd prefer to minimize the number of players you're running back with. Generally, we don't see 2x2 stacks do very well. So I would say 2x1 at best, or 3x1.
Yep. Best wide receiver stack with Minshew for DraftKings GPP.
Dude, it's so trying to pick the actual receiver is really tough. I prefer the tight end Tyree Jackson today.
Good.
I know that's how bad this slate is, because we'll have to monitor again at 4 p.m. They have to call up players from the practice squad. They have a bunch of receivers on the practice squad. They have Deion Kane. They have Keyshawn Johnson. If they call like all these dudes up, then we know it's going to be a shit show, and they're going to play like 8 receivers. Then I'm not sure if it's even worth playing any. Maybe one as a stab. Honestly, the best may be playing him with Gainwell, who catches passes out of the running back spot. And William in the chat says doesn't think Minshew starts over Hurts. I truly believe he does. I don't think Hurts plays a snap tonight.
That's insane.
All the just read the beats, right?
Yeah.
You can make opinions all you want, but if you read every single beat writer says Hurts isn't going to play tonight. So I'm willing to trust the guys that have been covering the team for 30 years.
And if you're over on FanDuel, Minshew's 5K min price on the showdown slate. So
yes, sir.
Tell me why I shouldn't just lock him in my 150 as captain.
You totally should. 100%.
Yeah,
definitely
easy.
Good.
Yep. Ed says, my bad. I'm working a COVID test and vax sites. Dude, you're just have us on speakerphone while you're testing people for COVID. At least tell them about Occupy while you're doing it.
Yeah, man. With every test, you get a free Occupy mention. Appreciate your service, Ed. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. But no, seriously, tell them to subscribe before you give them a test. They can't. I'm joking. Don't actually do that. He says, am I crazy to fade Tyreek today? He gets bottled up against cover 2.
I think it's crazy, just because of the slate dynamics, right? Like I said in Discord, he could score 8 to 10 points and still be optimal, just because of every other receiver on the slate. And yeah, I think it's pretty crazy. Again, he's gonna be 75% owned. There is some leverage into not playing him, but you could literally turn the TV off after 2 plays. So
yeah. And then he says, what about Taysom? The Taysom season.
I love Taysom tomorrow, to be honest. Against Atlanta's defense, he has a rushing incentive that he can hit in his contract. Not that Taysom has ever needed incentive to keep the ball on an option play, because he always does. So I do like Taysom tomorrow. And then to Dot Bet's point, I like Kamara a lot too against Atlanta. Sounds like Mark Ingram's going to miss, and Kamara has historically gotten more volume this season when Ingram's been out of the lineup. So I like it.
Nice. Ed also says, what's your thoughts on Devontae Smith?
So apparently Devontae Smith today needs 38 yards to break the Eagles', I don't know if it's single season or rookie receiving record, whatever it is. I think it's 38 yards. It sounds like they might play him to get that. They may not play him at all. He says he needs to be out there, but it's not up to him. It's up to the team. Mm-hmm. So I don't think the ceiling is very high. Like maybe he catches a couple passes, gets 40 yards, they take him out. I don't think it's worth playing Devontae Smith.
Makes sense to me. So we have 3 minutes left, and Ed probably hasn't asked the question. He's probably too busy to ask the question. But for tomorrow's slate, the best worst play and the worst best play.
Oh man, we got some good ones tomorrow. All right, so I'm just gonna pull up in the model really quickly. I'm gonna pull up ownership.
Okay.
I'll look at running back first. Let me see here. And main slate. Okay. Best. All right, so the worst best play to me is probably Samaje Perine. He's the worst best play. I think he'll be relatively popular because he's starting for Joe Mixon. But I could see them getting Chris Evans work. They're starting like all backups very, very easily. That could go down in flames quickly. And then for the best worst play, I'm going to stick with the running back spot. And it's probably... This isn't as good as the Ramondre Stevenson call from last week. But I could see Zach Moss getting a lot of work in a bad weather game if they're up by multiple scores in the second half. Again, nowhere nearly as good as the Ramondre Stevenson play last week, but I could see it.
Yeah. There's a person who's near the top of the wide receiver model that might qualify for the worst best play. And I might get flamed by the fan base for saying it, but I think Jamar Chase should not be that high at all in the model.
No, we're going to manually edit that after the show because they basically said he's going to be in there to get the 13 yards for the record, and then he's out. Yeah, we're going to bump that down ourselves for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Wide receiver or running back flex week, best salary relief play if you want Cup or Taylor in a lineup. Cup, Taylor in the lineup.
No distinct preference for running back or receiver, which probably means receiver this week. Best salary relief play if you want Cup or Taylor in a lineup. All right, give me a second here. I'll answer that question.
Okay. And then is it possible Goddard and Scott is active at 3 p.m.?
Yeah, they have until 4 p.m. to activate. Again, all the beats don't think it's going to happen just because they're going to rest these guys. They haven't practiced all week. No need to play them. But to answer the question, yes, it's possible, and we'll know in 90 minutes.
Nice. Do you think you can stack Minshew with Quez Watkins?
I think you can. Again, playing time is very uncertain, but I think it's probably one of him and Rager are probably the guys I'd feel safest about that normally play.
Nice. Cool. Moose bringing the heat with the quality questions. Yes, you already know that. Just call me Moose Ward. Please understand it.
I'm with you, Moose.
Thank you. Been on that binge. Yeah, I've been on the. Is why we have 30 seconds left. Been on a binge of. I think it was maybe a couple months ago. You talked about like watching podcasts or reading interviews about people who are really good at what they do, and so I've been watching just that as well. And so watching some Nardwar or Harry Mack. Just got to give out some of the shout outs. People who are like the pinnacle of what they do. It really makes you think, sit back, and it just makes you like question some of your strategy, how they're doing, and what you can do to better your process.
Absolutely, it's never a bad idea. I'm not gonna give away too much. I have an interview coming out, but a top DFS player in the interview said that borrowing from other industries is the best way to improve your own process. So stay tuned for that.
Nice. Yeah.
To answer .bet's question, best salary relief play, I think, is John Bates. 3K tight end for Washington. Logan Thomas obviously out. Ricky Seals-Jones also out. Like every other tight end they have is injured in some way. John Bates is going to play like every single snap. So I think John Bates at 3K on DraftKings is the best salary relief play.
Yeah, I love how when he first came into the scene, we're like, no, he's just a blocking tight end, doesn't do anything. Now he's just like the greatest tight end ever.
I can't remember who said it, but it's like, yeah, they just interchange their tight ends no matter what their skill sets are. Oh, you're next up. Okay, you play 60 snaps and run routes, no matter what you've done in the past. So
exactly, yeah. So I think that'll do it. 2:30. I got to get up out of here. If you have any more questions, we do have the Discord. If you're watching a replay, you can comment down below. We'll be sure to answer the questions. You can also hit us up on Twitter, all that good stuff, just like normal. I'm not sure, Brian, or is Chris doing a live thing tomorrow?
I don't know. So Chris is expecting a child like any minute.
Oh yeah, so I forgot about that.
So I would doubt he's doing one. I'll probably fill in tomorrow. So we'll do something tomorrow for you guys.
It's just him in the hospital. His wife is yelling, and he's just like,
Get off the
Honey,
phone.
calm down.
For sure.
So, all right. Moose and Brian here from Occupy Fantasy. Have a good one.
Good luck.
Good luck.